So we're back with hour 2. We're talking about classes and objects. It's week 4 in programming fundamentals. So just before the break, we were talking about a shopping cart object and what it might look like, some of the properties and some of the methods. So here were some of the things I had in my little sample. Similar, so we had the dates, an order number, as well as a couple of other methods that I thought we might have, like calculate the total, calculate taxes. We've kind of already talked about this example, about if we had a button, what some of those, well, we actually talked about one method. We talked about the click method, which is usually the method of a button we're primarily interested in. What about some of the properties of a button? So when we drag a button on our form, if I go to my toolbox and grab the button and put it on there, could make it a really big button.
Not the property.
What would be some of the properties of our button that we could change?
Size, color.
Size, color. What else could we change? Yep, we could change the name of it. And in fact, we did that last week, right? We said we don't want it called button 1 because that's not very descriptive. So we can give every object a name. What else can we change with the button? What other properties can we manipulate?
Probably change the shape or even change it to like an image or something.
We might be able to change it to, yep, so right here, that's what this little notice in Visual Studio, it gives us this little section called properties. If it's not visible, we can always turn this on through the view menu and clicking the properties window. This actually shows us here are all the properties of a button. So if we want to change, for example, background color, if we want to put an image on it, I could browse to some kind of image file. So all of these things are different properties, you know, the text. But the properties window is useful because it actually shows us for any object, here are all the properties we have access to. If we want to change it, we want to show it, we want to hide it, we want to move it, we want to change its appearance, the font, the color, the text. All of these things are different properties that we have access to for changing. We can also decide whether it's enabled or not. So it might show up on our page, but for some reason we don't want the user to be able to click it. Can you think of any examples? We see this a lot on a website. Where do you see a button where you can click it, and as soon as you click it, you can't click it again?
Well, it depends if there's an option where, for example, if it goes out of stock, if you were trying to like add some to your cart, and there's 5 left, for the 6th time, it might not be clickable.
Okay, yep, that'd be a good example.
Something that doesn't use checkboxes.
Okay.
You're sorting through products.
Yep. Okay, when else? We will see this commonly on shopping carts, where you can click a button once, but as soon as you click it, it becomes unclickable. When do you tend to see that? What's an instance on a shopping cart that we never want someone to click the button more than once?
Remove all items from shopping cart.
Could be. Give you a hint, it's at the end of the shopping process.
Process.
Right, when they're purchasing. Why do we want to make it so that why would my website make it so once you click the purchase now button, you can't click it again?
They don't want to
What happens, yeah, if they click it twice? Yeah, they're going to purchase, it's going to send their purchase twice. What's going to happen to the customer's credit card? They're going to pay twice. So often you'll see shopping carts, as soon as you click the pay button, that button is no longer available to be clicked. So what happens is we're actually changing the button. Still, you can see it, but when you can't click it again, we're changing in code the enabled property. So the button is visible but can't be clicked and can't trigger another click method. Okay? So we're changing enabled from true to false. Or we might even make something invisible.
Clickable.
Right? So these would be properties that we might have that we have access to of things like a button. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. Here are your instructions. Open up Visual Studio. Create a new solution, the new C# Windows Forms application. This will be the third or fourth one we've done now, so you should be starting to get familiar with how to do this. Call your solution either lesson 4 or week 4. And follow the instructions. I'll just have to check what I called mine. So I called mine lesson 3, so I'll make one today called lesson 4. So then rather than using the property, I want you to put a button on your form. And rather than using that little properties window, I want you to write C# code to try and do these things. Change the color, change the text, change the font, change how that button looks in C# code when your screen loads. So you don't actually need to click. As soon as the screen loads, you can change those properties. Sorry, I'll put the instructions back up. So now, go into your C# program, form 1, click view and code. So in here, you should be able to modify those properties of your button. In here, now in your C#, see if you can modify some of the properties of the button. So create a new project. So you do a file. Project. Here's a Windows Forms application, the first one. Call it lesson 4. Yeah, here's the name lesson 4. So each week we're going to create a new project the same way. So it just finishes creating one. We put a button on, and then try to change those properties. Button device. Button on your form. So now see in your C# code, you can modify some of those properties. So you got a button on your form, you created the form, that's good. You got the button, okay, so now go back into here. So in here, you want to try to access. So type the, what's the name of your button? Go back, what's the name? What's your button called? Well, yeah, called button 1. So So within your C# code, you type button 1. It has to go inside, just go up one line, it has to go inside here, after that line. Okay, and then it will recognize it. You have to spell it exactly the same way, or it won't recognize that.
I'm not sure what we're doing now.
It's fine if you have to. You got Visual Studio open? Okay. Yeah. Okay, so we borrowed this one? Your library. Okay, so you're installing Visual Studio, so you can't do it yet. You don't even have to click, it can be right here as soon as the form loads. Yeah. So just to give you a hint, folks, once you put the button on your form, you can actually write the code right here. And that way it will run as soon as your form loads, right after this initialize command. So you can write your code to access your button. So we don't even actually need to click the button. We want the code to run right here. So right after that initialize command, you can just change, so type the name of your button, whatever the button's called, and then adopt it. Okay, and now you have access to the properties. So we can do it in either place, but most of the time we're going to access the property. Right here after the initialize. I'll go back up.
What's the fourth thing?
So you don't need a button click. There's a built-in function called Initialize Component. You can write your code right after it on the next line.
We're supposed to create 4 things after them. I just don't know what the 4 is.
I'll leave it up. So change your button color, text, font. And size. They can go right after that initialize component command. Yeah, so now you just, so your access, we want to give that a value. So we're going to use equal. That color's not a method, it's a property. So we can just set that equal to some value. Okay, go back to your code. You can actually just write the code right here. We don't need the button click. Okay, so right here, rather than setting the properties here, I want you to set them in your C# code instead of using a property. Yeah. Yeah, so right there. Backspace. Hit dot.
There, now you have access to the properties. So choose one of those, so you have to do 4 lines of code, right? You have to access them one at a time. And then you can just change the value of any property.
So rather than say here, I want you to go into code, go into view code. So right after that line, I want you to change the property there. Okay, so type the name of your button and a dot, and then you can change those things. Yeah, right here, so on the next line. Yeah, but I want you to use C# to change it. And I'll explain why in a minute. I want you to make the changes in your C# code instead of your property. That's, so the green that the code goes through, that's just a comment. Right, so then on the next line, just put in the name of your button and a dot, and then you get access to all of your properties. So on the next line, type your button name. Okay, and we'll go down to the enter, go to the next line. Okay, so now type the name of your button. Well, you have to go back into your form. Go to your form for a minute. So it's called button 1.
There I have to do the
That's fine.
function of the size. Changing up
Okay,
the,
so instead of the dot, yeah,
I got all 3 done, except for that one, I just have to
so
do.
now we're putting the equals.
I know it's the scale function, but I don't know how we're supposed to format it.
Color.
It says scale, and then it says,
And then there's
so I can't figure out what else it is.
Those are all the properties. Color is its own object. It has its own properties, so just choose it. Come on, just choose any color.
Yeah, so now we've got to look here for the bright property that we're taking the background color. Yep. Close.
I have no idea what it is.
Oh, no.
I want to make sure that I didn't miss something.
No, I got 3 of those 4 things done, I just can't change the scale.
I don't know anything about code. I'm coming in here completely blind.
Oh, it's very, it's very similar to the stuff we did before, because we button the object, so we go button 1 dot text. One for a while, the scale, I got the other 3 down, I just can't figure out.
So that's not the property we want. So let's look for a different property that would set. So again, if you hit backspace one more time and hit the dot again, the little menu will come up. Scroll down.
About scale.
Keep going.
Size.
Yeah, we could try size. Or you could look for height and width. Indeed. Okay. With the little black fringe, that means it's a property. And you see the yellow, that's a method or a function. Let's scroll down a bit more instead of size. Delete the S for a minute. Make W. Yeah, you can just set the width in pixels. You can set the width and height in pixels. Either way. Yeah, that's it. Okay, just take out dot string and it's fine. Except The text, that will be what the button says. So we do want to change it, but now you're mixing up what the button says and the color. So we want to set those, it's okay, we want to do it separately. Let's change the
I
color.
was just trying to change the color.
Okay. So if you want to change the color, the text property, those are the words written on the button. So we need a different property. So hit backspace. And hit backspace one more time, hit dot again. So what you want to look through there, what property should we set if we want to change the color of the button? It'll be up near the top. Keep going, a little bit more, a little bit more, a little more. Okay, down a bit, and you'll see the property. Right.
I think I'm incredibly stupid for this.
No,
No, you're not.
Yeah,
We're just exploring it.
This part looks very wrong. Okay.
So we can't set the button equal. The button is itself. We just want to change the property. So we want button dot back color equals.
color dot to color. You guys did that, nothing happened.
So
Well, let's.
dot back color.
Yeah, okay. So now you accidentally are missing a curly bracket. Notice there's 3 opening, so you accidentally deleted one. So after this, close your last curly bracket. Except just the closing bracket. You just want that one. Okay, now click start.
What is this program recognize as named colors? Does it use it for Photoshop notes?
No, it has its own built-in color library. Okay, say no. So you're just missing, again, one more curly bracket. You need one more closing curly bracket. So there's 3, 1, 2, 3 open brackets. So you need one more down at the bottom. Yep. We're on a new line, one more closing curly bracket. So it tells you what you're missing. It's expecting, and press start again. There you go.
I think that's what it's called.
That's one.
I kind of cheated. I went over here and then I went here and looked at the color.
Okay,
shades.
go back here.
And that
We
seems,
just want to say button dot back color, instead of dot is known color, we just need an equals. We're setting a value.
You don't want to write that.
So now pick color, just click that, dot, choose any color.
oh, it's so much easier.
Okay, you have to run it. Right, because we loaded, when you change it in the properties window, you'll see it when it's not running. When your C# code doesn't execute until you press start. You actually execute the program. And did you get a color? Okay, so it's a different property. There's a back color for the background. So the text color is going to be one of the other properties of the button object. So it'll be in that list.
How do you do this?
Back color, what's the opposite of back?
Would you do one number X,
Yeah,
one
so
number
it's
say
not quite
say 16
called
like
front
16?
color, but it's
Oh,
close. If you look
the
around
size
there,
and that doesn't.
property.
Try
Change
typing.
text color.
Like I did button down.
Close.
Well, no, I tried that. It's really, I think it's talking about the size of the.
That's the property that will change the text.
The file size.
Oh, scale that maybe.
I try it, but try scale it again.
Okay, so you're on the right track, these are the right properties, so instead of
Oh,
using
there's
curly brackets, after back color, you just need an equal sign. We want to give that
Well,
a
first
color
you-
value, so now you hit enter, dot.
Because you have to change the text too.
There's all your colors.
Maybe you could go like bracket, look, just choose the string, or you can go quotation mark. Right now, like, click the-
Okay, go back, click dot.
There, and now, and the thing. With the second one? No,
No, that's cool. Just take out the word, take that out. Take out the font dot. No, just delete, yeah. So now put in quotes, so equals, then quotes, put in the name of some font. And you go wrap it up. Let's try that.
I think I got that side.
Just try like Arial, AR.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's considered.
Okay, let's put our mouse, put the mouse over it.
Just four.
The reason why it's color of the foreground.
That makes sense, yeah.
So it's telling us it wants a system drawing.
So I honestly saw
Take
the
out
button
Arial.
one.
Yeah, color just hit enter.
But so what do you do? Button one dot.
Right, so you system,
And then go dot,
drawing.
and just choose color.
All right. This
Yeah.
seems. Once you get the basics, it seems easy.
Font. Let's try
The only one that stuck me, because I did the first three, no problem, it was the changing the size. That was the gold one to me.
But here for so I think you're changing. Actually, you would go over here. Hey, you can't stick them into one, can you? That's your 2 lines.
Well, that's what you thought.
Yeah, expand that.
Well, you can always go off height equals width, and you go.
Why did 2 variables just to make sure I did it
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But I'm just saying, you could do one very well, so I don't know. In the future, try to,
Dot name.
you know, I
I
don't know why
one
you
dot
got
font.
font.
Font. First font in front of it.
Yeah, we would have to do the text though. Button one.
Try that in Arial. System dot drawing dot font.
Sure.
Similar to that.
Okay. This side. We'll come back to this one.
Okay, we'll kind of we'll walk through this together. A lot of you are making some progress. Don't worry if you haven't set all of them. The idea is to just play around with how we actually do this, what the properties are. So if you've got 1 or 2 things being changed in your C# code, that's good. That's somewhere to start. So I'm going to make a new solution here. So I'll click on New Project, choose Windows Forms, which I'll call Lesson 4. So I'll drag a button on, which by default gets the name button 1. If I put another button on, it'll be button 2, button 3, etc.
Why don't they start at button 0?
I don't know. So here I'm going to change the properties of my button. So my button has a name of button 1, which I can see right here. So the first thing I want to do is change the color of it. So how would I do that?
Button 1 dot color equals color dot whatever color you want.
So it's not actually color. We can see the property. It's the back color property I want to change. I want to set that equal to something new.
Color dot red.
And Visual Studio gives me a prompt. It says pick the color object, which is a built-in class in Visual Studio. And here are the properties of that color object. So I can pick any of those colors. So when my form runs, I'm changing the background color of this object. I'm setting, and notice when I mouse over it, notice the little hint. It says get and set. I can get the property, so it will tell me what the current color value is, or I can set or change that property to another color. So when I run that, my button turns a different color.
Wow.
Right? Pretty fancy. Yes, wow, indeed. We also want to change the color of the text, right? It doesn't look great. You've got this blue. It's hard to read that text on my button.
That's why it needs to be pink.
So how would I change the color of the text?
Button. Where equals colon dot.
So this time I'm going to set the 4-color property. So we have a back color, we have a 4-color. To make it pink, maybe I'll go with white so it's easier to see. So my button's blue, my text on it is white. Why would we ever want to change the color on a button? Why wouldn't we just style the button, say this button's going to be blue, that button's going to be orange? Can you think of any kind of scenario or context? When would we take a button, but maybe change the color on that button?
Depending on what website's going on, because
Right, but yeah, it does depend on the website, but what would be an example? Okay, so that would be one, right? Yeah, you pick your theme. So when you pick a different theme, we want to be able to change the color of the buttons.
indication that it's clicked, because you know, you click the button and it's like turns like I don't know, white for a couple seconds, so it shows that.
Yeah, that could be. Can you think of any other example? What might, if you have an indicator of, say, a button that might be green, might be red?
That's enabled and
What would green indicate to you as a user?
the button enabled it.
Yeah, that you should go ahead and click it. Red, maybe it suggests something you shouldn't do, or there's some kind of warning or stop, right? Maybe complete or incomplete for green and red. So we may want to, in the context of some web application, be able to change the color of a button depending on some kind of condition. Under one circumstance, it's this color, and on another circumstance, we want to modify it to a different background color. What if we want to, let's make it bigger. That button's pretty tiny. It's probably hard for you to see from back there. How could we change the size of that button? Anybody do this successfully?
Button one dot size
Yep.
equals to new size and brackets and a width and height. It should be either.
Okay, so these are points. So that's one way of doing it. Or I could, how else could I do it? Yeah, we could set the height as one property. I'll maybe do it that way, just it's a little simpler for now. This code's a little cleaner, but just to keep it simple, let's make it taller. So 100 points high. So we can also set a width property. So we can try that and see how it should be. Again, if we want to grow or shrink the button, change the size depending on some condition, we can, in our C# code, decide at any point how big that button should be. So it's bigger, still not very big, looks very awkward in that shape. Those dimensions, I probably want it much wider than I do big. And what about if we want to change what the button says? Which is often something we might want to do. Depending on a certain condition, we might want our button to say one thing. On a different circumstance, that button might say something else. Yeah, so we can change, just like our text boxes and labels have a text property, our buttons have a text property as well. So we'll assign some kind of text value, and that's what our button is going to actually say, instead of saying button 1. which is a pretty lousy message to give to people. We want them to click our button. They should know what the button does.
You always clarify that in the user manual. Since the
Yes.
button one-
And when people are using, particularly building websites and they're open to the public, people aren't reading the user manuals how to build our sites. They need to be really clear. Anybody that shows up on that website can easily figure out how to use it. And you guys will actually take a few entire courses in usability and designing, easy to use user interfaces on the web. So they shouldn't have to read a user manual to know what to do. So here we've accessed 5 different properties. I think I mentioned in here setting the font. That's actually a bit more complicated. I think I'm just going to leave that out for right now in terms of the font. So in each case, if we want to change the value of a property, notice it's always the same structure or syntax of our command. It's the name of our object, and then a dot, and then we access the name of the property, and Visual Studio helps us. It gives us this little pop-up menu, and then we can change or give it a new value to any one of those properties. You'll also notice one other thing about these little pop-up menus. When I hit dot, notice there's 2 different icons, little pictures that appear beside every command. Sarah, I'm going to pick on you because we talked about it. Can you tell us what are the 2 different pictures? There's these little black, like a wrench, like a tool, and there's these little yellow lightning bolts. So what's the difference between the 2? Yep. Right, exactly. So where you see these little black wrenches, those are properties that we can set or get. We can read the values of those properties or change them. And then where you see these yellows, these are the behaviors or the functions or the methods. They all basically mean the same thing. So if we're looking for a property, we can ignore anything that has one of those little yellow lightning bolts beside it. And if we're looking for some kind of function, well, then we can ignore everything with the little black icons, and we're interested in the yellow icons instead, because those are that's the functions or the behaviors. So some of our button methods would be things like, primarily we're going to use click. When we have a button, there are a whole bunch of other methods here of our button. Not as many as there are properties, but we're really not going to use many of these. We're really only concerned with, basically with click. That's really all users do with buttons. If we have different kinds of objects on our page, we'll use different methods. Like, let's look at this one for a minute. We've been working with buttons. What if I put something like, let's say, this on? Oops. Make my form a little bigger. You don't need to put one of these on. So this is called, it's a drop-down list, but in C#, this object is called a combo box. So there's our form. What do you think, if click is the method we're usually interested in with a button, what method would we be interested in on a drop-down list? What would a user do with that drop-down that we might be interested in our code? We're going to do something. Yeah, usually if we're going to assume there's maybe some kind of select method. So when the user chooses something, we didn't put any choices in here, but when they choose one, so for example, maybe we actually have 2 of these. And we call this one something like province So how might we use the select event on our province box? What would happen typically if we have two drop downs like this and the first one says choose your province?
It will limit the options in the second one.
Right. So once the user chooses a province, we're going to want to use that select event to display a list of cities in that province in our second menu, right? We've all seen this. We've all done this online, or maybe we pick our country and then it lists the states or provinces, or it lists the cities only in that country. So if we look at our dropdown, just like our button, if I double click it, you can actually see there's the name of what that function or that method is called in C#, called selected index change. It means the user picked something, one of the choices in our list. So we would write C# code here to go and get the cities and change the values in our second drop-down list. So this is some of the ways we use some of these method names. Okay, so that's playing around with some of the built-in objects in Visual Studio, some of the things that C# gives us. So the way that we create our own in the applications we're building is we create our own classes. So the classes describe the website or the application that we're building. So we already talked about some of the objects on an e-commerce site like Amazon. We'd have things like products, carts, customers, categories. What does this look like? I'll show you an example. Oh, we can have a look at this site for a minute. Okay, maybe that's, there we go. So here's a site that has a bunch of, let's consider this. So a website for a real estate agent that can show the homes they have for sale. So what kind of object is represented here on this page? You know, there is a class in this code. What class are we looking at here?
Photos, drop-down class.
Well, photos would be part of it, but everything here, all of these tabs are related to one thing. What's the main object we're looking at? Yeah, we're looking at a house or a home, right? So there's a class somewhere in here that has properties and methods of a home that's needed in order to build this site and let people see this information. What do you think some of the properties are here? What's one property we're keeping track of about each home? When people look at a home, what information do they want to know about that home? Okay. The size, yep. How many rooms are there? What other things would be important to you if you were looking for a new home? Yeah, the location, where it is, the price, the pictures, and video. What other things would you need to know? Anything else? The listing ID number, which is here. What about some of the methods? So those would be properties of what our house object would look like. What about some of the methods? What things can be done with the house on this site?
You can flip the different pictures. It's probably like a contact.
Yep, so there's the contact right here. You're right? There's a method, request to go see this. What about this one? What's that going to do?
Oh, definitely mortgage.
Calculate how much is this house going to cost? Can I afford to buy it? What if you're the person who owns this house? There's the price, $399,900. What if nobody's buying your house? So this house has been on this website for a long time and nobody's coming to see it and nobody's made an offer to buy it. What might the owner want to do with the house at this point?
Lower the price.
Yeah, they might change the price. Right, so they could lower the price. What about the real estate agents? What are they going to do with this once somebody actually buys it? They're going to call another method or do a different action with this house. What will they need to do once someone buys this?
Close the sale and whichever that's posted.
Yeah, so they need to, this house is currently for sale, you could buy it, but once somebody buys it, they need to change it so that rather than showing up in the houses that are for sale, they want to change the status so that it shows up as a house that's already been sold. Right? So people know if they look at it, they can't go ahead and buy it anymore. So save it as sold would be another method. And if we actually went and looked, let's see. Here's the actual code. Now it's not written in C#, it's written in Visual Basic, but we can actually look at this class. So here's the code. Here are all the properties. We have an ID, the address, price, description, whether it's still for sale or not. Does it show up on the home page? Is it for rent? Has it been sold? Yes or no? Where's the Google map? Where's the link to the video, the list of images, and the description? Those are all the properties in the code file. So you accurately guessed what most of those properties are. Save, get one, so look it up. Get all of the listings, get the listings for the home page, save an image, delete an image, search by the MLS number. So there are all the methods that were built in. So our code is all structured and put together neatly. It's not just, so there's actually 329 lines of code, but everything's organized into these neat sections. I mean, just start at the top and go all the way to the bottom in one long instruction. So we have a class, and if you look at the list of files, oops, you can actually see here are all the different classes used in this website. So the listings, those are the homes. There's a news class, a user class, an address. Today, you know, we get a functional application where somebody could actually go and search for their homes. Okay. I think we'll take a pause here. So when we come back, we've kind of played around a little bit with some properties in here. When we come back, we're going to play around a bit with some methods. We've already written one method before. We used the click method of a button. So we're going to now see what happens when we come back, when we put a whole bunch of buttons on the form, how that happens, and then how do we write our own method to make our code more efficient. So we'll do a little C# sample. We'll add some more stuff to this when we come back. Okay, we'll take 10 minutes.
Question?